Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Um, so, Star Wars. As you know from this and from my website, myecbu.com, I'm a giant Star Wars fan. I have been most of my life. I look forward to new movies whenever they come out. It's something that I actually am excited for. New movies, new books, anything Star Wars, I'll go and I'll mindlessly watch it. You can be critical of it after, but I want to see where it's going. It's this big, giant, interconnected story. It's interesting. Now, the novelization of the Rise of Skywalker has been making headlines at PAX East last weekend. They gave out copies of it. And because they gave out copies of it, information from the novelization has come out. In increments, I will give them that. It's been in increments, and it's been slowly leaking out, and it's... here's the thing. Star Wars has for a very long time editorialized canon. And I know a lot of people right now are being very hip to jump on to saying, oh, it's like J.K. Rowling editorializing the canon. Star Wars is kind of unique. Star Wars is not in its current form based on a book. It's a movie, and then you get the novelization after. If you flip it, it's a typical situation where it's like the book is going to have more information than the novel does. It's about 400 pages. The script for a movie is about 120, or in this case, it was 2 hours and 2.5 hours, so it'll be about 180, 150 pages, give or take. The book's going to be about 300 to 400 pages. It's different page sizes, so that's going to factor in. The formatting's different, so there's a lot of factors to go into it, but there's going to be a lot more information in the book than there is in the script. And if you wanted to see an example of this, compare the size and the formatting of, even if you compared Harry Potter and the Cursed Child to Harry Potter, the script books that came out for Fantastic Beasts and Fantastic Beasts 2. So I think that's something that, you gotta take into consideration, too. Compare those even to, how big the books are for Deathly Hallows, or Half-Blood Prince, or Prisoner of Azkaban, which is the biggest at almost 900 pages. But Star Wars has always done this. There's always the novelization, the adult novelization, not the junior novelization, has always been big and been packed with other information. And it's always kind of expanded on the canon. Anytime they made a big, drastic change to the canon, there'd be a reissue that would somewhat reflect that. And a lot of times you would see this not necessarily reflected in the book, but if you look through the expanded universe as a whole, this has been happening forever, where it's Star Wars is rife with continuity errors. If you look at Dark Force Rising, which is the second book of the Thrawn trilogy, the one that was really the trilogy that's credited with bringing back Star Wars to the mainstream back in the early 90s, before The Phantom Menace was even announced, that trilogy is in no way in continuity with the prequels. There's a lot of things that are completely incorrect, and that was canon until 2014, when Disney wiped out the old canon and started instituting their own. Even if you look at the new canon, in Aftermath, they talk about how Han rescued Chewbacca from Kessel. That's not what happened. He was rescued from somewhere else, and those are two things from Disney's continuity. So continuity errors are just a thing that you gotta live with as a Star Wars fan. And I think that it's worth noting that, if you don't take it too seriously, it's not that big a deal. Now, that said, there was a few big reveals that came out of the novelization of the Rise of Skywalker. First of all, there was excuse me. First off, there was the confirmation that when Rey's looking up in the sky and saying, "Be with me," and you have all the voices coming back to her, she is looking into the world between worlds, which did originate in Rebels. And it really does expand the lore of Star Wars. That's the least of it, though. People kind of glossed over for the other news, and that's that Palpatine, as we saw him in this movie, is a clone. And not only that, it's also expanded that Rey's father was a failed clone of Palpatine. Now, my biggest issue with that is that if you look at Dark Force Rising, where the Dark Force, the Katana fleet, I just finished this book within the last week or so it's fresh on my mind, originates before Phantom Menace. But not distantly before Phantom Menace, it's just before the Clone Wars breaks out. And the Republic has a standing army. That's obviously not in continuity. Later on in the book, it's toward the beginning of the book, when Luke's looking into Master Sabaoth, he finds out that he was a confidant of the, He was a confidant of the Emperor, of Palpatine before he became Emperor, and he served as a liaison to the Jedi Council as a Jedi Master. We know now that role went to Anakin, as of Episode 3. So here's the thing, though. Dark Force Rising came out before the prequels. And it wasn't part of this big thing where we gotta keep track of this, we gotta keep track of this, this happened here, so we gotta keep that in consideration. And also, at the time, they used what was called a tiered canon system, where each thing had its own level of canon, where it's like the top level is the movies. The movies are the Bible, for lack of a better word, for the series. Everything has to adhere to the canon of the movies. Then came the I think it was TV shows, video games, books, and then there was like the holiday special, and there was holiday special in the Ewok show, and then there was some other comic that was in the specifically not canon category at the bottom. But that said, I don't understand, how can you mess this up? Because it's number one, if you're going with the tiered canon system, this book and this movie would have come out after The Last Jedi was written. So they would have known what Kylo Ren... That's my biggest concern here, is that Kylo Ren said specifically to Rey that her parents were no one special. And then it's expanded on in The Rise of Skywalker when it's he didn't lie. Your parents were no one special. Your grandfather was someone special. Your grandfather was the Emperor. Okay, I get that. Completely get that. And it's not like there's no precedence for someone raising a clone as a son. And because, Boba Fett is a clone of Jango Fett. Which is another odd decision, to say the least. But what I don't get is we're looking at this now, at this point, that's kind of completely blown out the window. And it does kind of change the perspective on what Kylo Ren is saying in The Last Jedi, where he goes, you're not special except to me. It's like he was lying to her explicitly, where it's at worst before he was telling the truth, but he was being a dick about it in a way to be like an abusive boyfriend or something like that. And quite honestly, anyone who says that the relationship between Kylo Ren and Rey is normal should go see The Invisible Man, because a lot of the things that Kylo Ren says to Rey also happen in The Invisible Man, but that's not the point. And that's explicitly shown to be an abusive relationship, to a disturbing degree. That's a fantastic movie, though. But we have that's not even the point that I wanted to make. I mean, you can editorialize it. You can say that he was a clone, and saying that he was a clone is fine. And I'm also completely okay with them saying that her father was a failed clone. That I get, because it's I don't want to have to deal with the mental image of the Emperor around the time of Return of the Jedi managing to maintain an erection long enough to get someone pregnant. That's not a mental image anyone should have to have. And the fact that in the movie they kind of explicitly said that happened, they didn't say that they didn't say that he fucked someone, but they did say that he got no, it was a normal biological pregnancy. It's not like when he immaculately conceived Anakin with Shmi, he just used the Force to do that. No, he it was the normal way. He just fucked someone. Like, no, we didn't, like, that was a needless piece of information, and that's made even more needless now that the novelization says it was a clone, her father was a failed clone that just couldn't contain the Force. And then the question is, if the failed clone didn't have the ability to control the Force, because we know the Force is controlled by midichlorians and how it's controlled by all of that, it doesn't make sense then that now is her father truly no one? This further muddies the situation. And, like, again, I'm not saying they shouldn't editorialize and expand, but it should be just that, an expansion. Originally in Return of the Jedi, Anakin turns because he sides with his son. He throws the Emperor down the pit because he sees that. As it expanded out, in 2006 I had a novelization of Return of the Jedi that I read. It was 2006, 2007, so it would have been 2007, 2008, because it was after Revenge of the Sith came out. And I'm reading it, and it says at the end that all of his memories come back to him from his time as Anakin. And he remembers Obi-Wan, he remembers his time with the Jedi, he remembers Padme. And, like, at the moment he's picking up, he remembers Padme and his love for Padme, and when he throws him down the cliff. And I'm like, that's a catastrophic change from what we interpret in the movie. And I'm in 6th grade, so I'm not using those terms, but, from how we interpret that scene in the movie to that point, it doesn't quite click. Then when they redid it again, Ahsoka got added in when they did it another time when they reissued that book. So expanding it doesn't hurt as long as it doesn't, change the meaning of the scene. Disney has had this kind of need recently to change things, and it completely changes the understanding of everything. Like, let's look at Solo for a minute. I liked Solo. Solo was a really good movie. I would say it's probably the fourth best. Third if we're not counting The Force Awakens, because it's just a carbon copy of the original Star Wars. Where it's like, it's not as good as Rogue One, but it's still solid. It's not as good as The Last Jedi either, but it's better than The Rise of Skywalker, so I guess by default it falls into, number 3, number 4. But here's the problem. Han's arc in A New Hope is that he's a scoundrel. He's a bad guy. He's not really a bad guy. He's out for himself. He'd be the guy who is like, you gotta look out for number one, and number one's always him. And that's his character. And we accept that. So when, at the end of the movie, he comes in and and all seems lost, and Luke's got Vader closing in on him, with his 2 flanking TIE fighters, and then all of a sudden the Millennium Falcon flies in, and it's this big heroic moment. It's this big deal, because he's finally doing something for someone other than himself. He's not doing it for, He's not doing it for his own benefit, because he's getting nothing out of that. It's for the benefit of everyone, and that's a big character development moment for him. And then on the other end, when you watch Solo, Solo is his origin movie, where he meets Chewbacca, he meets Lando, all in the span of a week, and then, like, he works, and then he ends up assisting in the formation of the Rebel Alliance. Like, and we're just like, he's gonna do the right thing for Enfys Nest. It kind of, now if you show someone the movies in chronological order, which is not what I would recommend you do, if someone hasn't seen Star Wars, I would do it theatrical release order, but if you're gonna do that, it now undercuts that scene, where it's like, now if you show them Solo and then show them A New Hope, it's gonna undercut that substantially. Because now it's like, well, he's done it before, he's done the right thing in spite of himself before, so we know he is a good person, but the fact that he is a good person isn't developed in that movie until the end, and we see him grow into that. So I feel like there was something else I wanted to address with this. If you're looking for new expanded universe content that's come out recently, I've been falling behind on my reviews because I've been doing a lot of driving lately, so I've been listening to audiobooks while I drive. So I've been just cranking out these books. So I'm like 3 books behind. So some quick thoughts on some of the newer extended universe content that's come out recently. We have the High Republic, which I talked about in a previous episode. I'm not going to go too deep into that. Looks pretty cool. Looking forward to that. Thrawn Ascendancy looks pretty cool. Looking forward to seeing Thrawn's true origin, and not just the origin that we got in Thrawn, which is a little weak in my opinion. Of books that have already come out that I've finished, I just finished Star Wars Myths and Fables. I really like that book. It starts out on a very high note. It starts out with two characters that are established. It starts out with Obi-Wan, set during the era where he is protecting Luke on Tatooine, and it's about a dragon that he tames. It's actually a really good story. And then the second one is General Grievous, and a military failure that he has because a droid. He underestimates a droid. But I would, like, if you haven't read this book yet, it's kind of like, I don't want to say Tales from the Citadel from Rick and Morty, because, I mean, it's that kind of, like, it's written like they're myths, and like they're, like fairy tales that you would tell a child. But the stories are all, like, random assorted stories from around the Star Wars universe. And that's something I would definitely... It's very well written. It's written in very lofty mythological language, and it sounds like you're reading some epic fairy tale from your childhood, but it's Star Wars stories from around the galaxy, and it's really interesting to see how that plays out. So definitely get that. If you can get that one, definitely get that. I'm assuming that the book looks pretty thick, and then the audiobook was only like 3 hours long, so I'm assuming there's a lot of pictures and stuff in the book. It's meant to be like a children's book. The content area, I would say, is not quite children. I would say like mid-grade, maybe. But it's definitely worth checking out. Then another one I just finished, Thrawn Treason. Hands down my favorite Thrawn book so far. And I've gone through Thrawn Alliance, Thrawn Treason, and then Heir to the Empire, and Dark Force Rising. The next one I'm going to do is Last Command after I finish Aftermath. Where it's like, he's got this great scene. I don't want to spoil the book for anyone. I'm working on a review as fast as I can with this, because I'm falling way behind. I'm like 3 books behind. And I think that, cause I'm trying to crank out like 3 other projects at the same time, and there's just so much going on at once. He has this great scene where there's a standoff at the end of the book between him and someone else, and it's just so well written. Like, I would like to see this trilogy done as a Disney Plus series. I know they did it as a comic series. I know they at least did the first Thrawn book as a comic, but I would love to see this done as a Disney Plus series, only because, in Rebel style, it would be so. It's just so well written, and it lends itself to that view where it's like, he's just, he's stoic as he always is, and he's talking to the other person. I'm trying to describe the scene without spoiling it. But he knows the other person so well that he knows what he's going to do. And what the Thrawn books do very well is they don't make you feel stupid as you're reading them. And what I mean by that is, let's look at not Brainiac, that's not the right character, the Thinker on Season 4 of The Flash. His power of deduction could at best be described as he had a copy of the script 2 episodes down the line and was able to read it. Because, like, if you look at all the things that he was able to pick up on and know before he gets to that point, it's like, at one point, the ship gets attacked by the Black Canary of Earth X, and it's like, how did he know that was gonna happen? Like, there's so much he just knows just for the sake of knowing it. But the thing is, it's like, a way to write that character where it's well written would be to do like what they did with Thrawn, where it's like, all the information's laid out, and he's presenting the information to you, and then once it's explained to you, like, oh, okay, I get it. And the thing is, too, is he never mocks the person he's doing that to. It's never like, to humiliate anyone. And it's weird that I'm talking this way about an Imperial Grand Admiral, but that's the way it's presented in the book. And it's like, and that's my other concern with the Thrawn books, is that it's always designed to be this story of someone overcoming racial prejudice and rising through their ranks in spite of prejudice and all of that. But it's Thrawn, the Grand Admiral of the Empire, who spends 3 seasons on Rebels chasing the Rebels around. And it's just kind of weird. But it's like, if they did I keep saying Brainiac, if they did the Thinker that way, it would have worked a lot better. But that's, nothing we can do about that now. And the way they present to you, the information is all presented to you, and it's all, you can pick up the mystery along the way. I talked about this yesterday in Knives Out. You can pick the mystery up along the way, just by figuring out what's going on, because everything is laid out for you easily. Nothing's hidden from you. It's not like, they tell you explicitly the opposite is true, and then it's like, oh, surprise, we got you. Like, he's not playing, Benedict Cumberbatch isn't playing Khan, he's not playing Khan. Oh, surprise, he's Khan, we tricked you. It's like, no, you told me the opposite just to do that. Or like, the Arkham Knight is not Jason Todd, it's definitely not Jason Todd, it's not, oh, guess what, it's Jason Todd, we tricked you. No, you didn't. So yeah. So, if you are not diving into the new Star Wars Extended Universe, I would advise, considering what's coming out this year, I would start with Alphabet Squadron. It's a book about a woman who defects from the Imperial Navy and joins the New Republic. Very well written book about finding family and becoming more than yourself. And it's just so good, and it offers a lot of insight into how the Empire kind of fell apart in the wake of a lot of what happened in the aftermath of Return of the Jedi, like Operation Cinder and all this other stuff. I would definitely check that out. Also, because Thrawn Ascendancy is coming out this year, I would go Thrawn Alliances, Thrawn Treason. That way you can get to that. All of these books are available in paperback, I believe, so it shouldn't cost you too much. Or if you like listening to audiobooks like I do, don't use Audible because they charge you. If you have a library card, you can download this app called Libby, and you put your library card in, you can rent the books from your library, and you can listen to them for free. So I would do that instead. And then there's no reason not to listen to it. I'm a big proponent of libraries, so definitely check that out. So we'll wrap this up for today. If you want to support the show, you can go to the website I mentioned earlier, myecbu.com. I'll be posting up more in-depth reviews of some of the books we covered here. Some of them are already up, like Thrawn Alliances, Thrawn Treason. Their reviews are already up. I'm finishing up Thrawn Treason. I'm going to be doing, immediately after that, the non-canon book, Dark Force Rising. And then also, what are the other two? Myths and Fables, and there was one other one I just finished. I'm almost done with Aftermath now. So those will be going up in the near future. I would assume within the next 2 days for Treason. On Twitter, if you go to @30minreview, I have a poll up on my Twitter feed for what I should do for Beware of Spoilers on Sunday. On Saturday, I'm definitely doing Onward. I have a ticket to see it in Dolby at a mostly empty screening on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So 100% doing Onward. But the question is, which movie should I do for Sunday? And the options are Emma. What are the other options? Emma, The Way Back, and Greed are the 3 options. And you can check that out on Twitter. Place your vote, and by later today is when the poll closes. Right now, I think Emma's in the lead. So we'll be back with definitely one of those from Beware of Spoilers later this week. Definitely on Saturday, definitely Sunday, and then probably another one. And there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. I'll be doing more of these like little episodes as I see things that annoy me on social media, so get ready for more of these. And we'll be back with another one of these probably Monday, if nothing else. So until then, have a great rest of your week.